Our next conversation is going to be about police reforms. President William Ruto formed a task force and told them, please look at the welfare of the National Police Service. And not just the police, look at the others as well, the prisons of service officers as well. Look at them, look at their recruitment, look at their remuneration, look at their how they are facilitated to do their work, look at their well-being, how are they housed, how are they dressed, are their children going to school, are they happy at work, what do we need to do to make sure that the police... The person who has made the chair of this is Chief Justice Emeritus David Maraga. The report is out, and that's what we want to discuss. We are joined by the Acting Executive Director of the International Commission of Jurists Kenya Chapter, ICJ Kenya, Demas Kiprono. Demas, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. That's a hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes.
So the David Maraga Task Force is formed. It had many... How many members was it given?
Oh, it had many members from different constituencies, from the police, from IPOA, from National Police Service Commission, from civil society. So it had very many members and really collected views from a wide array of Kenyans, police officers, and went to every county to collect views. Yes.
Broadly, what are their terms of reference?
The terms of reference was to look at reforms in police, the prisons, and NYS, and then to perhaps look at the reforms that need to be made. So it had to do with welfare and also operations, and what laws or policies that needed to be changed so that they would function better as the formations that they were. Yeah.
Why?
Remember that when the current president came in to power, there had been really a weaponization of police in terms of using them for political ends. We can only suspect that perhaps and other reasons that this was done was the loss of the two consultants for the Kenya Kwanza team who disappeared, basically. Remember, just before that, we had a lot of disappearances within the police. Blamed on the police. We had the Rivayala bodies being found in gunny bags, and so on and so forth. And so part of the manifesto was that they would look into policing. And I guess that was why they went into that. There have been issues with prison reforms. The prison reforms that came with Mudi Awori were very transformational, but it sort of ended there. And so they also needed to look into how prison officers are treated, how they are paid, and how they operate. Yeah.
The report is out now.
The report is out. We got the executive summary. The final report is not out to the public, even to civil society, because it had certain, this is what we are told, it had certain details that may endanger national security. For example, the weapons that needed to be procured for policing. Remember, our police deal with complex issues from money laundering, terrorism. We hear every day, not really every day, but almost every month, of IED attacks in the border regions. And so they really work in perilous situations, and sometimes letting the public know of the tools that they have may endanger national security.
So broadly speaking, from the executive summary of this report, what is David Maraga telling us? Is he telling us that our security systems, our police service has been okay? Or is he telling us that there have been issues in our police service that need to be addressed as a matter of urgency?
To be honest, the Maraga report is very blunt. It is not very diplomatic in terms of telling us that there is a lack of visionary leadership in the National Police Service. The National Police Service is led by the Inspector General. The National Police Service Commission has a chairperson and commissioners. One of the first recommendations is that the commissioners have a negotiated exit, that they go home, because the commissioners,
the current commissioners,
according to the report, surrendered their mandate to the executive and to the National Police Service. Be that as it be, it also says that the police service itself lacks visionary leadership, has recommendations as to the appointment of the IG, tells us to go back to the initial state when we passed the new constitution. The first recommendation was that we needed to have an IG who is independent of the executive, who does his or her work without regard of the regime, but does work with regard to the constitutionalism and human rights, and actually also his officers. And so during that time, the National Police Service Act provided that the National Police Service Commission would advertise, shortlist, interview, and then forward a name to the president. The first reforms that happened in the policing side was the Security Laws Amendment Act, which took us back to the situation where the police inspector general was beholden to the president, because it repealed that part of the involvement with the National Police Service and returned the appointing authority to the president, purely without any interview, without any vet, not real vetting, because there is this vetting in Parliament, but it's usually a formality. Yes. Another thing.
So this one now, Maraga is telling Ruto to cede that authority back to the National Police Service Commission.
Yes.
Same Ruto who was deputy president in 2014.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And remember, during that Security Laws Amendment Act, and the guise of the act was, Kenya is being attacked by terrorists, we need to really take back security. But it was really to usurp the constitutional gains that had been gotten. There are theories of policing. One of the theories is intelligence-based policing. The other one is regime-based policing, and the other one is community-based policing. They usually say a combination of community and intelligence-based policing is the best. But what we see is regime policing, where the police are there to cater to the needs of the powerful and the regime, and deals very badly with anyone who threatens the regime. And if we go back to our history, every time the civil unrest or whatever, people are demanding something. So in the 90s, when the clamor for more democratization, and in the 2000s, you remember after the elections, the 2017 elections, or before the 2017 elections, the IBC protests, you saw how the Kenyans who were protesting were dealt with. And we also saw that last year, during the Maandamano. And so how do we now change policing from regime-based policing to really fidelity to the Constitution, to the sovereign people of Kenya? Because the reforms are far-reaching in some of the recommendations, we expect some resistance from within the system. If you've been following Kenyan politics, you'd realize that after the 2010 Constitution, almost every attempt at reforms or changes for example, in the judiciary, in the constitutional commissions, for example, the Auditor General was trying to take us back to the situation where we had an all-powerful executive. We are happy that this is an initiative that was started from the executive level. And so we think that there could be political will for this. But the question is, will we get that, will that translate into political will within the police service itself? Because it makes a very stark indictment on the police service leadership. Are they going to step back and allow the reforms to happen? It makes recommendations of fresh vetting right? You remember Kenya went through a police vetting process that began with the chairperson of the National Police Service Commission being delivered a head, like a severed head. Yeah, and so that tells you the stakes. So we can't pretend that the stakes are not high. The stakes are high, and so it's up to us, really, Kenyans, as the customers of the police officers themselves, because whenever we have a dysfunctional leadership, dysfunctional National Police Service Commission, the people who end up suffering are actually the police officers.
Yep.
Yes. Because if your human resource is not dealt with properly, it means that it's those who can pay their way through are the ones who get promoted, who get transferred to lucrative areas, in terms of geographical areas and also in terms of being taken to traffic police, for example. Well, and so in the last month, where we have been, civil society has been brought into a few gatherings by Interior, by one development partner working for Interior, basically trying to fast track these reforms. I can admit that we have seen movement at that level. We have not seen any gestures from the Inspector General himself, being the leader of the National Police Service. We have not had anything from the National Police Service Commission. And so, yes, it's going to be a challenge, but I always want to live being optimistic.
Why do you want to be optimistic?
I want to be optimistic because I don't want to live in doom and gloom. So, apart from leadership, the report also speaks to corruption. And we know corruption is one of the big things in Kenya. It's everywhere, but especially in police. Especially if you look at the TI indices on corruption, it usually puts police at number one in corruption, and it really admits that the service is very corrupt, that it interferes with business. For example, the Inspector General a few months ago admitted that some of the officers were trying to give him the returns. You know, the returns are the monies that are collected every day from bars and businesses operating in different areas. But the theory is that the money usually goes up. We don't know how high it goes, but that is the theory. So,
but he was denying that it reaches his desk.
He said that he didn't. He refused.
But surely you didn't expect him to accept that it does. Did
Actually, yes. It's when he comes to me every day.
Whether it does or not.
These are his words, and he refused.
We do not have any choice but to believe him.
Well, so let me understand this.
Yeah.
So that with the claims that were made, that certain amounts of money would come to him as terms of the returns, was the question then posed to him to confirm or deny whether this money actually came to his desk? Was that question posed?
No.
What happened?
The context of this was an anti-corruption gathering at the Kenya School of Government, and as part of basically a statement in support of the assertion that there is corruption in Kenya, he said that he has been offered. Yes, but this is something every Kenyan sees on the roads.
Yes,
we see it in the bars around where we live, where police come in the evenings and take something from the businesses.
So what does it recommend about corruption?
It recommends, first of all, the abolition of the traffic unit, and removal of traffic stops, and basically replacing them with mobile units. That would from time to time, if there's a security issue.
So what would they be called if they're not under traffic department? They're under what? Mobile department?
They will be under the various precincts where the road passes.
Do they recommend technology?
Technology is one of the big recommendations. Yes. And having been at the National Council on Administration of Justice meeting yesterday, this was discussed a lot in terms of how do we remove cash from policing.
Okay.
Do you really think cash is the problem?
I think there are so many problems. It's layered. The first problem is for you to get into the police, you may have to pay something, which means that you went in as a businessman. For you to be promoted or taken to a certain area, you have to give something, or if you don't give something, you have to repay to whoever took you there.
And Demas, you're not paying to air, you're paying to somebody is taking that money.
Yes.
So it's a system.
It's systemic. It is systemic.
Yeah.
In fact, this is something that we also in civil society struggle with. How do you change the minds? How do you change the mindset? How do you disincentivize a whole system from this? Because we know, because we work with police officers, we know that there are certainly good police officers who do their work, who sacrifice for the good of Kenyans. But we also know that it's difficult to work within a system that makes certain demands of you. Digital tools, we can get to something similar to what you're saying, but if we get actuaries to look at our fine system and to make it so that it's not really punitive, it's something that any driver can afford. And then at what point, because I know in certain jurisdictions outside Kenya, you can find a situation where someone has up to 50 parking tickets. But at the end of the day, we ask yourself, this is getting too expensive, right?
Can I assist you with a thought?
Yeah.
You talked about digitalizing this service.
Yeah.
All right, let's say first offense, you're over speeding, it is 2,000 shillings. You can ask friends to Changa, you'll pay the 2,000. And you pay it online. Automatically, the policeman who has written this thing down automatically gets 20% of that to his account immediately. So the more people you arrest and the more money the government gets, the higher your commission. It automatically makes it a business. So you will want to do your duty because you know you're going to get your bit anyway. Now, there'll be those rogue individuals, they always are, who will want to take everything. But I'm simply saying, this thing of trying to pretend that we have a situation that only needs a little tweaking here, removing this so that they can become ambassador to Pakistan, and that nothing changes. It's the same discussion.
You want us to legitimize extortion?
I want us to
so
put
because
a
a cop has a
structure.
target,
Yes.
he will come and find a mistake on you. Wewe, hii miwani yako yoni mbele. Fine.
Yes. I prefer that, because then I'll say, take me to court.
There is a book by one scholar called Alice Hill, and it talks about African presidents and their police commissioners. And part of the theory that she puts forward is that because the police have been told your work is to protect the regime, as long as the regime is okay, then you can do all the collection that you want. And that is part of if you look at most African countries, you find that problem is there.
It's a give and take.
Yeah, it's a give and take. We've had moments in our history. I remember after the Kibaki regime came in, where Kenyans were the ones demanding that police officers behave well, they would make citizens arrests. You know, there was that moment.
We had hope then.
Yeah, that hope quickly disappeared.
It was extinguished.
Yeah, it was extinguished. And so I think there is a way that the powers that be, the police, can extinguish hopes. We had digital OBs set up in certain police stations as a pilot project. That digital OB system would have eradicated some of the things that we see in police stations, where on weekends 1,000 people are arrested and then 100 people end up going to court. What happened in between? You know, those are the things that would have helped. But you know what? Those things don't work anymore.
You know something?
Yeah.
They actually do work.
Demas,
Yes.
does the report recommend anything about the welfare of the individual officers working in the police and prison service?
Yes. Let me talk about, the report is about 500 pages. And so...
That's the executive summary?
No, the executive summary is smaller. But I'm just telling you that we concentrated on the police part for obvious reasons. For the police, there has been an issue of welfare. There has been an issue of mental health. The report speaks to the need of comprehensive health insurance in the police service to ensure that they and their families are taken care of in terms of health services, and earmarks mental health to be part of this insurance. Yeah. And so that
what we are saying is that currently police do not have a comprehensive medical cover.
Yes, their medical cover is very problematic. You may go and your registration is not acknowledged, or that the service is not available at that time. So yes, at the moment there is a problem in terms of health. In terms of mental health, the mental health is there have been attempts to have trainers of trainees in terms of mental health. They've domiciled it within the chaplaincy unit. And I usually say that mental health issues are not spiritual issues. Yeah, these are medical issues. We have all witnessed the murder suicides that have happened in the service, where an officer within the barracks kills another officer or a loved one and kills themselves. And so there is a mental health crisis that needs to be taken care of, and it still feeds back into human resource, because if you're being frustrated by your boss, and we know that the nature of policing is quite it's not like any other job. One moment you're called to pick up a body in the road, another moment you are dealing with a murder case. You have to internalize the case, then go to court and explain what you saw. It really needs a lot of debrief, a lot of mental, psychosocial care.
So does the report go deep into this, or does it just mention it like, we need to take care of the mental health of our police officers?
So because I haven't seen the 500 plus pages, I can't say whether it has gone deep enough. But usually, what I know about the discipline forces is that they and such reports that just doesn't really go deep into the issue. I've not seen that in any recommendation on the separation between the chaplaincy and the real health issues, right? Yeah. And basically, the lesson is that once you let things start sliding, they ratchet up, and it becomes unbearable. And then now we start basically talking about how it may be our fault.
Yeah, it gets out of control, and we have nothing else to do. But once you get to internalize more of the report, please come back. Let's keep discussing this. Let's keep educating the people on what the report has said. Let's discuss what's workable, what's viable, what's not.